Hi, we're going to make some sourdough starter. I've heard a lot of people say that they can't find yeast in the stores right now, and this is a good time to make some sourdough. All you need is some flour and some water and some patience. Now, the flour can be any kind of flour, whole wheat, it can be all purpose, it can be bread flour, anything that you happen to have on hand. I have well water, so I don't have to worry about chlorine. Chlorine is used to inhibit the growth of microbes in city water, so if you have city water, you might want to use some kind of distilled or purified water for this so that it doesn't inhibit the yeast growth. And then the only other thing you need is a container to put it in and something to stir it with, and a little bit of patience while the Mother Nature does its wonderful work. Pay close attention here because this is just the hardest part of all of it. You put your water in the jar, you add your flour to it, and then you mix it with your spatula. Moisten all of the flour with the water. Make sure everything gets evenly moistened. Cover it loosely and set it aside for 24 hours. Day 2, and there's absolutely nothing different. It's a little bit looser and softer, and it's just sitting in the bottom of the jar. So now what we're going to do is feed it again and leave it for another 24 hours. It's day 3, and we're finally starting to show some signs of life. The volume in the jar has doubled. It's starting to smell. It kind of like somebody's dirty socks or stinky feet. We are going to mix in another half cup of flour, another quarter cup of water, and we're going to stir it up, cover it loosely, and leave it on the counter for another 24 hours. Last night before I went to bed was climbing way up the jar, and it was very bubbly and frothy, and now it is sunk down, which is an indication that it's pretty much used up all of its food. The other thing that I'm looking at right here is I have a layer of liquid that goes all the way underneath all the foamy, frothy stuff. Now that liquid is the alcohol that's the result of the fermentation process of the yeast. So we're looking really good right now. We're going to feed this one more time, just like we have been with your half cup of flour and quarter cup of water, and let it sit on the counter for a few hours. See that we've had considerable activity. The starter has climbed up the jar to this point and falling back down. There's a heavy layer of liquid on the top. The liquid floating on the top is alcohol that is left over as the result of the fermentation process, and this liquid is fondly called hooch. Stir the hooch down into the starter and feed the starter again using your 1/2 cup of flour to 1/4 cup of water ratio. Mix it all together. Cover it, set it aside for one more night. This is day 5 of our sourdough starter. It was left on the counter overnight. I didn't get a whole lot of activity last night because my house is pretty cold. I have fed the sourdough starter one last time with 1/2 cup of flour and 1/2 cup of water. I'm going to let it rest for about 15 minutes just so that it gets relaxed. And it's been sitting for about 15 minutes and had a chance to settle down. I have roughly 2 cups of starter in the jar. We're going to pour half of the starter into a clean jar. We're going to cover it loosely and put it in the refrigerator to use at another time. With the rest of the starter, we are going to make a loaf of bread today.